in the saddle. It's time to get down, dirty up our knees into battle. Oh, come on, round up the boys, gonna make the walls rattle. Oh, our flag is tattered and our bones are shattered, but it doesn't matter 'cause we're moving forward. Round them up, let's go. Round them up, let's go. The blood we've shed. The only way I'm leaving is dead. That's the state of my head. They don't know where we've been. We got that concrete street skin. The only way I'm leaving is dead. That's the state of my head. That's the state of my head. We've been shot up, beat up by the falling of the arrow.
And good afternoon. Nice Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast. You are listening to The Hardy Show, Sports Talk Speaker Radio, iHeartRadio.com, and on YouTube.com. Email for the show is hardy4824@gmail.com. Again, the email for the show is hardy4824@gmail.com. Twitter is @hardy78. That Twitter is @hardy78. Plenty of ways that you can get in contact with us. If you're listening live on the show now, just go to the talk section of this app. Put in your question and comment. We'll get to them on the air. Obviously, I can't get to all of them, but I'll get to most of them. So after last night, how many people's brackets were busted? ESPN said that Virginia, next to Villanova, was the most picked team to win the national championship. Vegas actually had Virginia as the overall best odds. Well, yesterday that ended. As for the first time ever, a 16 seed beat a 1 as the University of Maryland, Baltimore County makes history by beating Virginia 74-54. This wasn't a buzzer beater, folks. This wasn't, Loyola Chicago beating Miami. This was Buffalo beating Arizona. This was a beatdown. And as we all said, something that people said, look, the 16 is eventually going to beat a 1. It's going to happen. It's about the matchup. But when you look at this on paper, Virginia was the best defensive team in the league. It's a reason they had the number 1 overall seed. It's the reason they only had 3 losses. They had over 15 games this season where they did not allow more than 50 points. And they allowed 74 to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. A little team that could. And of course, now you're getting the questions today, and you'll get them Monday, and into tomorrow and into Monday. How could this have happened? People are comparing this to the Miracle on Ice when we beat Russia. They're comparing it to some of the greatest upsets that have ever happened. And it's the fact of, again, it's not like they won by, a prayer 3 at the end of it. They won by 20 points. The University of Maryland, Baltimore County won by 20 points. By 20. And I think this comes down to really three things. One, the University of Maryland, we're just going to say UMBC. UMBC used the Rockets Warriors type of method. Kind of what Marshall did to Wichita State yesterday when they beat them. They spread the floor. They made Virginia run up and down that floor countless times. They got the open perimeter shots, and Virginia could not keep up. They could not keep up. That was a factor. And there's two other things that I believe were a factor. I think a lot of Virginia players, not the head coach, but I think a lot of the Virginia players looked at this as a walk game. We're going to have no problem here. We're not going to have any issue here. We won the ACC tournament. We only lost on the season 3 times. This is going to be a cakewalk. They underestimated UMBC. And the third thing, the heart and determination from UMBC. They wanted to prove and show something here. And they did. And you're going to have people asking the question, where does this rank on upsets? Not just because there are people that are claiming that this is the biggest upset in tournament history. That's a pretty good argument. When you have a 16 seed beat a 1, something that's never happened, and they do it by 20 points, and they put up 70 on a defense that for most of the season didn't allow more than 50 a game, I think it's a pretty good argument to say that this is the biggest upset in tournament history. Then the question becomes, where does this rank all the time? When you look at upsets across the board in sports, where does this rank all the time? And look, this has been the true definition of March Madness. The first round was true definition of madness. You had Loyola Chicago beating 6th seed Miami. You had Buffalo blowing out 4th seed Arizona. And now you have UMBC that blows out number 1 ranked Virginia. The updated rankings now have Villanova as the best chance at winning the national championship. Duke is at 2. But Duke has a tough matchup today. They have Rhode Island. Your games today, Bama and Villanova are playing now on CBS. You have Rhode Island versus Duke, Buffalo versus Kentucky, Loyola Chicago versus Tennessee, Seton Hall versus Kansas, Ohio State versus Gonzaga, Houston versus Michigan, and Florida versus Texas Tech. Now, when you look at today's matchup, who could get upset today? Who could be a favorite that could lose today? In one of my brackets, I picked Villanova to win it all. My other bracket, I picked Duke. But I said that if Rhode Island gets out of the first round, that they would be, because of their size and how they shoot threes, they could be a tough matchup for Duke. I really don't want to go that direction because I think Ohio State's going to beat Gonzaga today. They were one of my dark horses. Ohio State was one of my teams that not a lot of people were talking about, probably people didn't have going past the Sweet 16, that I could see them going to the Elite Eight. I could see them getting to that point. Even though I don't like the matchup today with Duke and Rhode Island, and I think that could be a tough game for Duke. Because I picked them in one of my brackets, I just can't go with that one. I'm going to go with one on the other side of the fence, Houston and Michigan. Houston has the talent to beat third-seeded Michigan. That, to me, would be the game, I think, to watch today when you talk about possible upset. I could see Houston beating Michigan. Even though I could see Rhode Island beating Duke, I don't want to say that because I picked Duke in one of my brackets, but unbelievable that you had a 16 seed beat a number 1 yesterday in UMBC beating Virginia. Just absolute shockwaves across the board. And I heard somebody on ESPN College Basketball talk about how this is the type of loss that stays with a program. And this is a type of loss that can affect a program for seasons to come. This Virginia team, even though as great as they were in the regular season, only 3 losses. I just talked about the defensive stats. People aren't going to remember that. What they're going to remember about this Virginia team is that they became the first 1 seed to ever lose to a 16 in the first round. And not only that, but they lost by 20 points. That's what this Virginia team is going to be remembered for. And this is a loss that stays with you. You know, you heard Jay Bilas say it best on ESPN. This is a complete shocker. You look at the matchup, UMBC shouldn't have been able to even contend with Virginia. And they didn't just beat them, they blew them out. And again, it's like I said, I believe there were 3 factors. UMBC used their personnel well. They used the Rockets-Warriors mentality where we're going to use our size against your defensive team. And we're going to wear you out, and we're going to shoot perimeter threes, and you're not going to be able to keep up with us. They did that extremely well in that game. And Virginia couldn't contain it, and they were wore down. Another thing is I think those Virginia players looked at this as a walk-through game, that it was going to be like a practice. They did not view this team as a fight or a matchup. And the other reason, I think this UMBC team just believed from the start, we're going to make history here. We're going to shock the world. And they did. Then you had Buffalo blowing out Arizona. I don't think Sean Miller is going to be there next season. You know, we haven't heard too much more about the FBI probe stuff. He has denied the wiretap stuff. He has said that is incorrect information and that he has never paid to get a player to come to Arizona. But this is a team that has underachieved for a while. Sean Miller's had a lot of talent there in Arizona. 8